You're listening to Speaking of Voice Acting. I'm Chris Takashi, and with me today is the voice of Slasher, Jackson, and of course, Hanstock the Antman, as well as a bunch of voices for Atomic Radio. We'll get into all that. Barry Coleman, what's up, man?
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Now, the first role you voiced for me, I believe, was the Ant Man, right?
Yes.
Was that your first voice acting role for a mod, or have you done like other work besides that or before that?
That was my first voice acting for a mod. Yeah.
Have you done voice acting prior to that for other things besides mods?
No, I have not.
So this was like your first foray. Did you just want to try it out, or did you do acting like in other realms before that, like theater work or anything like that, or just doing funny voices?
So I did a lot of theater work in high school. I did some in college, but I never had done voice acting.
Mm,
I have taken a couple of workshops. Didn't really record anything, but just kind of went to conventions, got advice, and then eventually a friend of mine recommended your site to me, and I'm like, I'm a little nervous trying it, but you got to get your feet wet
yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that. So I ended up looking up and I saw some of your roles and I was really interested in
Mm,
trying it out. And much to my surprise, I actually really enjoyed it. And it seems that you enjoyed it as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
And I wanted
You're
to kind of
great.
keep it going when I had the opportunities to do so.
Is that something you want to pursue, like make it your prime pursuit in the future, like to do voice acting, or do you still want to go like theater work, like Hollywood, all that kind of stuff?
A mixture of both. It's kind of just whatever door opens first. I guess voice acting would be first because that's kind of where I threw my heart in
Mm-hmm.
all at first. But since there was no real voice acting kind of thing in school, the closest thing I could get was theatrics. So I was like, okay, let's just go ahead and do that. Um, it's not exactly the same because, with voice acting, you're kind of emulating all of your body gestures into just your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And, people think it's easy, but it's pretty hard. It takes a lot of time and practice to really craft it down. Because I mean, some people see movies, like you see actors who try to voice act. Some can do it well, some can't, and then voice actors who try to act, some can do it, some can't. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like a mixture of kind of knowing how to do both, and that's kind of why I like them both.
Yeah,
I do want to make it a prime, but life and all that stuff kind of makes it a little
yeah.
difficult. But once I get in like a good position, I definitely plan to put major focus into that.
You have a theater background, so you're used to kind of interacting with people. You're used to
Hmm.
having that like back and forth. Was it difficult to do the scenes? Because I had you in a lot of scenes, I think, where you were just talking to people, just like as background chatter, and um, was that difficult because you're basically talking to air? You're sort of having to imagine who you're talking to, right?
Yeah, it was a little difficult because I wasn't sure. I saw the text in the sentences and things. I
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't sure how it should be read. I just used my best judgment according to what the person said, like prior to,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of went with it. It's difficult because you kind of have to just make a good judgment
Yeah.
call.
And then my
It's
lazy
hard
ass
to.
isn't there to direct you because there's no excuse for that. But
But it was okay. I mean, for the most part, when we were kind of doing work together, it seemed like the work for the most part, maybe with a couple fix-ups here and there,
mm,
was pretty good. So for the most part, I think I understood what direction you were trying to
yeah,
take with the characters, and that's the most
yeah.
important thing.
Use your talent and skill to make up for my lack of direction and my laziness. So I thank you for that. I rely on you guys to figure it out. But,
No, you're welcome.
the first role you did was again it was Handstuck the Ant Man. So this was a
Hmm.
guy who was a little bit unbalanced, I'd say. And
Hmm.
have you ever done just like a role that was just really weird and off the cuff like that?
No, that was actually my first role. I was looking at his lines. I'm like, boy, this man is weird. Some of the lines and directions, I was just kind of, let's just have a little fun with this because he does seem like that weird kind of funny character
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you would find in the kind of game. So I was like, okay, let's just take that, add a little bit of my flair to it, and whatever you were looking for, and just kind of put it together. And for the most part, it seems that it was well
Yeah,
liked by
it
most
was
people who
great.
watched it.
It was great because I think when you're always like when you're writing these sort of like crazy people, more or less, for lack of a better word,
Hmm.
you still want to have them be like charming and funny and endearing in some way, right?
Yeah.
And I think like your performance when you talk to him, like yes, he's crazy, yes, he's out there, yes, he really, really likes ants. Well, he doesn't like them; he just respects their power, right?
Yeah.
um, but yet at the same time, he's endearing to talk to because you don't want to just like ignore him and run off. So I thought that was just indicative of how good the performance was. Another thing is that like I remember like for that role I like researched how ants communicate, so I try to kind of like interject a little bit of science into that. I don't know if you noticed that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
um yeah, so I think you did really well with that. Have you ever had to deal with like ants or a pest in your house or anything like that?
Yeah. Ants from time to time, especially during the summertime, like if they even sense like a little bit of a food crumb somewhere,
Mm,
we had like a house where like it was very very forest based, so we had to be careful not to like leave things around because ants definitely could come in a little spot and just go right at it. So we did have that kind of thing. Since when doing the character, I wasn't sure if at first I was unsure if he like hated them, but as reading the script when you showed me, I think he just really liked them, and I'm like, this guy likes ants. I personally don't really like them,
yeah.
but
Most people don't. Most people don't have this strong affinity to
like
ants.
I know they're very helpful to us. I know they do a lot of things for the world that I don't really see on a 24-hour
Yeah.
basis, but on my skin, near me, or especially the red ones, the ones that actually bite people, I'm like, nope, I'm good on that. But for the most part, I did enjoy kind of, going outside the box and something that I normally don't enjoy and trying
Yeah.
to, make it seem like I actually
Mm.
enjoy it. It's fun.
As an
It was a
actor, do you
challenge.
have to sort of like replace the ant in your head with something you do like just sort of trick the mind?
Yeah. So, yeah, that especially if there's like a role or anything or something in particular that I have a disdain for,
Mm.
I'd try to replace it with something that I enjoy or just kind of, fake it till you make it with that particular thing.
Right,
And for
right.
the most part, it works. But I do like to apply something to it to make it doable.
Hmm.
And for the most part, it usually works out for me, at least.
So, what are some of the things you like? What are your like hobbies? What are your interests besides acting, of course?
Besides acting, I'm a big nerd, and big nerd. I'll say that. Big into
No
video
shame there. No
games.
shame there. We're all nerds here. You're in a safe space.
Yes, it's great. That's one of the reasons why I really like it, because I feel it was it was wonderful to kind of see that someone's into the games, and there are people who like the games enough to come and voice for it. So I
Mm.
was like, that's perfect. But aside from voice acting, massage therapy is something I'm really into. Video games, sports a little bit. Only a few like tennis, basketball, volleyball, a
Nice.
little bit of boxing here and there. Um, I do like to cook as well. I've been reading from time to time, not as much as I'd like to recently, but couldn't stand it in school because they made you read things that I wasn't really interested in. But when you actually read something that you do have interest in, it's like, wow, this book's really cool. I told my friends, in school, if they had let you read your own book
Right, right.
and then do a book report, I guarantee you'll see A's everywhere.
Yes. Because there's
At
the
least that's
passion
my thought
there.
process.
I think in general for anything, like you're trying to do something, it's either going to be work or it's going to be not work. And if you have the passion for it, it's going to be not work. It's going to be fun. But if you don't have that
Yeah,
passion, then it's going to be a chore. So,
exactly. So that's how I saw that when doing the roles. It looked like a lot of lines, but it is something that I want to do. It's something I really enjoy. So it's fun to see the challenge and how to read certain things.
mm-hmm.
And for the most part, when you read most of the material to someone's liking,
Mm-hmm.
it feels really accomplished. Especially again, like you said, when you don't have that much direction and you end up reading in the direction the director wanted you to go into, it's
Right.
like, oh, I like this person because they get a feel for what I'm writing, and I really like
Mm-hmm.
that. I try to achieve that whenever I voice act for anyone. I want to do that as much as I possibly can because I know people really like that.
Are you a fan
So
of the Fallout games, like the Bethesda games in general, Skyrim?
yeah. I just recently kind of got into Bethesda games a bit more. I did play Doom back when it was out, and I played the remastered. I really love the remastered. It sticks to the classic Doom. It's gory, it's violent, it's pretty much what you saw in the very first game that came out, but just prettier and just very, very fun.
Okay.
Skyrim, Fallout 4, same thing. I
Mm.
all enjoyed. I know some people had their discrepancies with them, but for the most part, I'm not really a picky person.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless there's something in the game that's so bad, it's like, oh, I just can't get around this.
Hmm.
But the Bethesda games in general, Skyrim, Fallout 4, and previous Fallout titles, I actually do enjoy.
Nice. What's your favorite thing about Fallout 4?
Fallout 4, I like the different factions that you can choose and some of the NPCs you encounter. I specifically like, if I had to choose, I'd like the railroad.
Mm.
Um, because I forget the name of the NPC. I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of the NPC. But the fact that he was able to just come out of nowhere when you have him around, and he'd literally Deacon. There we go.
Oh,
Deacon is
right,
his
right, right.
name. He's one of my favorites because he literally comes around and he's like dressed up in a different attire every time you see him for the most part. And he's a pretty comical character, which I really enjoyed. Um, he was my first NPC, and the railroad was my first choice.
Mm.
And I really liked the story of, I don't want to spoil for people. Well, then again, people who on the
Yeah,
site
yeah,
either have or
yeah,
haven't.
yeah.
But uh, basically, I like with the synths and trying to help them out and things like that because they were created. They're trying to be people. They're trying to find a place, and
Right.
that's all they're trying to do. And some people are kind of taking it a little out of context and trying to make them seem like they're destroyers. But some are, some aren't. You just have
Mm.
to pick and choose wisely. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I really liked Fallout 4, just the companions in general, the depth they gave them. Because
Hmm.
there wasn't that in Fallout 3, which is why we had kind of had to fill the void there. But before we get to
Yeah.
that, you also did a bunch of atomic radio stuff for me. I think we had you do like just a bunch of posh people. We had you do like a rich socialite for Connie Goes Home. That was actually like a
Yes.
parody, I think, of a Twilight Zone episode. I'm not sure, but you're this rich socialite. You come back home, but in typical sort of Fallout fashion, you're actually just like crazy and out of your mind. But um,
Yep.
like, how do you sort of get into those roles as far as just because they're like there's this 1960s vibe, there's this really sort of classic American vibe to it, but it's also sort of just like a parody, it's a comedy. So like, how do you approach those kind of roles in general?
So depending on the time or timeline of the ones you choose,
Mm-hmm.
I try to maybe do some, background research on that specific time era,
Mm-hmm.
and going with that and trying to kind of not perfect the voice for it or choose a voice that's most appropriate for it. I try to just wing it with those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. I feel like I've seen enough, like old TV shows and things like that. I don't know why,
Right.
but I feel a lot older than I actually am because there's a lot of like old
uh
TV shows that I really do enjoy.
you're old
Um,
soul, you're basically like a Renaissance
yes,
man.
yes, that's the perfect Renaissance man. Um, I definitely feel that, and because of how much I've watched and how much I kind of know of those things,
Mm-hmm.
I just apply that knowledge to those specific types of roles,
Mm-hmm.
and those kind of help me. Those help me with those. Those help me with those a lot, actually.
Yeah, because I think there
Um,
was like a really like subtle voice difference. Like I think you voiced the socialite, but you also voiced like a butler, I believe, for an actress who also was out of her mind. Coincidentally, there's a theme going
yep.
on here. But with each role, there's just like a subtle difference, a subtle change that I think like really sold the characters as different people. I
Hmm.
believe you also did a cop, right? For there was like a Drumlin Diner thing where there was like aliens who landed and they were trying to figure out which one of the humans was an alien, and um,
Yes.
that sort of fit into like the Fallout theme of paranoia. And even for that one, I mean, even though it's obviously an extreme parody of that paranoia type theme, even for that
Hmm.
one, I think like your performance was just like measured and um, basically playing like that straight man to the crazy cop, right?
Yeah.
And like each performance, I think there was just a different subtle voice you used, so that it was always a different character, a different person, but at the same time, it really fit what we were going for as far as each of those radios performances.
Okay. That's awesome. I'm glad I could find it
Yeah.
for each character that I've done, because it was hard for some characters. I just kind of some decisions I just kind of I don't know if it'll work out, but
Mm-hmm.
just make it work to the best of your abilities, and then if you need to make any adjustments or improvements, just go from there. At least
Yeah.
that's how I see
And
it.
ultimately, these are all like comedy bits, and so it's like a far cry from like the whole theater stuff. Have you done anything like where it was more just lighthearted and just like sketch comedy type stuff in your past?
Um, I can remember doing stand-up comedy. There's like
Mm-hmm.
this thing called Coffee House back in high school where we would have to make a skit on a certain theme, and one of the themes for me was or at least the theme I chose was a stand-up comedian. The punchline for that specific skit was that he always laughed at his own jokes, regardless if the audience did.
Mm-hmm.
He would basically he is the entertainment for himself. He's on stage just letting the jokes crack, and in his mind, he knows he's really funny, and he knows these jokes are really funny. So when you make something that seems really terrible seem like it's really really funny,
Mm-hmm.
then that's how you get the audience to laugh. And then when the audience laugh, that just increases the characters. Oh, they really like these jokes. Cool.
Yeah.
But he already knows. But just the audience's laughter is kind of like the cherry on top of the ice cream for him.
Mm.
So it was kind of fun playing a character like that, where like no matter what he did, even if it was like absolutely terrible, he would always enjoy what he was doing, and the audience saw that, and that's what kind of made that whole skit funny.
Yeah, it's like the infectious nature of laughter, right? I
Hmm.
think I knew somebody actually like that who you would make jokes, they would be terrible jokes or they'd be good jokes or whatever, but he would always laugh at them, and then just the fact that he was laughing, it kind of made you want to laugh. I mean, you're not even laughing at the joke, you're just laughing at the laughter, and it's weird. It's
Yeah.
it's like it's like one of those human reactions where like if you I mean this is completely different, but if you see somebody vomit, it sometimes makes you vomit. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah. So it's weird like that. But yeah, you're this sort of like Renaissance man. You do all these different things, but then we also had you voice like a complete badass and a chem addict in Fallout 3, which is completely
Yeah.
out of character for you, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that was actually that was one of the toughest characters because I'm used to kind of enjoying those
Mm-hmm.
characters, like the characters that just have like when they appear on the screen, you see a badass. But me voicing one,
Yeah.
that was definitely a challenge because I was trying to that one for the longest, even though it wasn't that many lines,
Mm.
just getting it down to he's serious business. This man's coming in here
Yeah.
to cut people. He doesn't want to mess with you. You don't want to mess with him. He doesn't want to mess with you. It was fun. That was actually one of my funnest ones to do because it was completely out of
Yeah.
character for me, and the fact that I was able to, for the most part, get that idea down kind of made me really happy.
Yeah. Do you think
Um,
those kind of roles for an actor, not just you, but in general, just to step out of your comfort zone to kind of find these like other hats to wear, more or less? Do you find that more thrilling and fun, or is it just the challenge is kind of like a bit um makes you a bit anxious, or how do you feel about like doing that sort of thing, like stepping out of your comfort zone?
Stepping out of the comfort zone for characters like that, or any character in general for like an actor,
Mm-hmm.
is it's depending on what it is. At least for me, it does cause a lot of anxiety because I'm worried as the person who's doing it, I don't know if I'll be able to hit that
uh
range or hit whatever is needed. But at the same time, it's also exciting because it kind of helps you discover more about your voice
mm,
and what you're actually capable of.
mm-hmm.
So if I had to like say to encourage people,
Mm.
to go outside your comfort zone and try something that may seem a little different, you might be surprised at what the results are. And I was very surprised. I think it was Jackson. I was
Yes.
very surprised that it came out the way it did. And when I heard it and listened to it back over and over, I'm like, wow, is that really
Yeah,
me?
it
I
is
could actually go that low and feel that
menacing.
badassery. It was really cool, and I was like, maybe I should try more roles and try to develop other things. It was really cool. That was one of my favorite ones to do.
Yeah, I think just your range as an actor is just really impressive. You're able to do, I think, just um not only badass roles, intellectuals, posh roles, also just like we talked about the cop, the soldier. It's just I think as an actor, it would probably just be fun for you to just like to be able to try new things, right? And like
Yeah.
diversify yourself. Um, do as an actor, do you draw like we talked about with Ant-Man and like drawing from something you do like? Do you draw from moments within yourself to create that character like Jackson, or is it something where you're trying to like research or become something else?
For characters like that, I try to draw in any memories or anything that particularly can be helpful to that character
Mm,
that I have personally
mm,
experienced. Try to add that and whatever that character's experience, put it together, and then just go with that.
mm,
If there's a character that kind of already has like a clear cut type of personality that I know that I can, appeal to,
mm,
then it's pretty easy. Characters like that, that I have to take a little more time with, yeah, I do channel something within me, and if I can't really channel it, or if I know the experience that I have with that
mm.
isn't too close to it, then I do a little extra research just in case, just to make sure that whatever I'm going to try is close to what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good idea because it makes it more genuine if it's a personal experience, right? Because
Yeah.
we're all, as human beings, we all have times where we're angry. We have times when we're a, quote unquote badass. Everybody has their moments, even us nerds. So if you can
Yep.
draw from that, and even if it's not your normal state, the fact that you've been there, you've experienced it, you can extrapolate from, that seed, more or less, and grow it into a tree. Um, which I think you did. And again, you would have to also, I'm assuming, do that for Slasher, right? Well, here we have a guy who's a bit funny, who's a bit eccentric, but he's also just like hardcore chem addict. I don't know if you're
Mm-hmm.
actually a drug addict in real life. I'm assuming not. But
Mm-mm.
have you ever had any experience with drugs or anything outside of the norm? I know the FBI is listening, but have you ever
Not
experimented in your youth?
in my youth. Not really. Like alcohol is something I just kind of waited till I was older to try
Mm,
all that stuff that people tried to do when they were younger. I know it was one of those cool kids type of thing to do it when you were in your teens, smoke, drink, anything of the sorts. But
yeah,
I kind of waited till I was of age to do it, so that way I just didn't have to worry about
yeah.
anything. I know that I can specifically do this particular thing. Um, Aside from that, not too much, at least within the legal realms.
Right.
Not too much, not yet. I
Smart
do
man.
want to try, but somewhere in the future I will make
Okay.
time.
So you do want to try. You want to try heroin, cocaine, all that stuff. No, I'm fucking
Like,
with
I know there are some people who do it
you.
for method acting, and it scares me because I know it has its side effects. Like, there are some actors who will experiment, and actually do the real thing.
Mm,
I've method acting is something I've always kind of been leaning back and forth on
mm.
because I know that if you try certain things to really get into that kind of character that does drugs or anything like that, it could have repercussions on
Oh
you
yeah, personally.
later. So for now, at least, I just do research and just hope that whatever I'm doing with that works.
Yeah.
Um, that's really all I can do. In the fact that, like you said, he has he's eccentric.
Hmm.
I'm already kind of eccentric as a person, so that made it easy,
Right.
a little easier for me. But then adding the drugs to it, I do watch a lot of movies, and noticing all that kind of helped as well, and just kind of making a good example, thinking of a movie that I've seen, and then putting my character to it,
Mm.
and then just going with it. That helped with that role a lot.
There is what is that famous line? It's like Laurence Olivier, I think, when Dustin Hoffman was method acting, he was partying, he was like doing all this stuff, staying up late at night, and it was killing him. And then like Laurence Olivier said, like, my dear boy, why don't you just try acting?
Yep.
And so that's really the point. You know, you don't need to do that exact thing. Is like we were talking about earlier. You could probably draw from a similar experience, right, and just
Yeah.
extrapolate from that. So that being said, what is your vice? What would you say is your vice? Video games, or anything?
Um. So for me personally, uh, I've had a lot of like, dreams and desires to want to like do things in general,
Mm-hmm.
and just the idea that like there's always something inhibiting it,
Mm-hmm.
and it just never works out. Like for the majority of my life, ever since I've started being on my own, I don't really know a lot about like the world and around what's around me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the kind of person that just wants everyone to, be happy, enjoy what they want to do for the most part, that doesn't like hurt anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just the idea that, we have people who don't believe that, people are as awesome as they used to be. Um, that whole like theme kind of makes me feel like if no one's doing it, someone's got to do it. So just the idea that, people think the world isn't, as a good a place that it actually is. And, in some cases there's a lot of motivation to agree with that. I mean, I'm pretty sure, you see it, I see it, everyone sees it. There's not so great things that the world is currently
Yeah.
doing, but I try to take, you know, the people who have helped me and I've helped in some way, shape, or form. And even then, video games, I know people hate on them a lot, but me personally, I feel that video games have a lot of oomph to them in terms of themes and morals that people just kind of, overlook. I mean, I get that there are people who play video games to just simply play these games for this specific type of thing, like,
Mm-hmm.
shooting games, Call of Duty. I just want to play this game to release stress. Just want to, shoot some people in a game, have some fun. And those kinds of games, I get it. And, sometimes there are story campaigns and there are things you can take from those games in some way, shape, or form. Not saying to take the shooting part and apply it to real life. No, by all means. But just the general aspect of like, teamwork. Being with a bunch of friends that adds to the fun for everyone, and just the idea that you can work together to take out another team of people with the skill of your friends is, I'd say, pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting games, just, knowing whatever character you're using, applying your, thought process, your skills to that character. That character has like all of this, and it's your job to figure out how to utilize it to beat other opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Some opponents are going to have a little more tools to use than you, but if you can find a way to kind of take advantage of what you have or capitalize on that person's mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
that's also something you can do in real life as well, to help you be better at whatever it is. It doesn't have to be like a video game, or per se, it can be like a job. I would feel that some of the aspects you take from, playing some kinds of games can be applied to real life. That is something that I feel strongly about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm not the kind of person who dwells into the fantasy and believes that, Cloud or Sephiroth or whatever will come out and, help you in whatever life
Oh, they
situation you're
won't?
in.
Damn.
But they
Way to
won't. Are you
crush
kidding?
my
Why am I playing this
dreams.
game? But, just the general theme and how those characters are, and kind of applying it to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's something you personally experienced, is something you can do. There are people, argue that, that's what TV and movies are for, but to me, a video game is just kind of an interactive movie.
Yeah.
You're actually playing, you're actually kind of being a part of a story. You may not be the character itself, but when you play the game, you're kind of immersing yourself into that character.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a sense, you are kind of becoming that character. character. You're going through, you're experiencing their story, you're having feels for certain characters. You'll love these characters, you'll hate these characters. And in a way, it's something we also do in real life. We go, do different jobs, we go to different places. There are some places that, we really enjoy, and there are certain people within those places that we really like to be around.
Mm-hmm.
So they're pretty similar. It's just some people may take it to the extreme and then think that those things are real, in which case that is a problem. But, it's not something that will destroy someone or just be like the end all be all. So to just kind of long story short, I kind of take my things from video games and personal experiences of not kind of, being able to have certain things that people have, and just trying to be understanding of other people's, situations as much as I possibly can. And I've been through some situations where, I would try to do my best for somebody. They didn't really see it through or see the way that I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, over the course of time, some people kind of saw and say, hey, I'm sorry about that. Or some people still don't, in which case, you can't help everyone. But my general goal is to just the idea that I know that I can help someone, whether it's entertaining them, physically helping them, mentally helping them in some way, shape, or form, that alone adds my drive towards voice acting and acting, even when I'm not in the greatest situation for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as I continue to grow and learn from people and other kinds of things, it'll help me grow into the voice actor that I want to be. And eventually, I'll get there. It's just going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more grinding out.
Just gotta
But I
keep
think it'll
grinding,
all
keep
be worth
working.
it.
Yeah, I think it will.
Exactly.
I think that's a beautiful way to end it. The fact that you're showing that empathy, I think that's one thing that's really important in like society, not just in terms of video games, but just showing empathy for other people, being understanding of other people is just such an important quality in life. And it's also something that translates to video games because or translate to voice acting, because you want to be these characters, and to be these characters you have to understand them, and just having that empathy, I think, is going to take you very far. Not to mention the talent and skill, which you do obviously have. But, so thanks again for coming on, talking about the roles you've done. Hopefully we'll get you doing some more roles if you've got the time.
Yes.
All right, man. It was good talking to you.
It was good talking to you. Thank you for everything, Chris.
No problem.
All right, talk later. Have a good
Yeah,
one.
you too. Bye. All right, that does it for this episode of Speaking of Voice Acting. I want to thank my guest again, Barry Coleman, for coming on. You can check him out on Twitter and YouTube. Link should be below. And tune in next week. Hopefully we'll have another great guest on the show. All right, bye, guys.